Ladies and gentlemen, the play's the thing. With your host, Judy Sleed. Special guest, Ward Morehouse III, author, playwright, and journalist. Now here's Judy.
That's me. I'm Judy.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judy, but I'm not Cary Grant.
Oh, gee whiz. I thought you were. Well, anyway, you're more talented than Cary Grant.
Well, I mean, maybe in his very later years, yeah.
Yes.
But you know, he did a show that he took on the road called Evenings with Cary Grant, and he loved it. You know, he was a very shy man in person, and he didn't like to talk to people. But he got over his shyness and actually made a big hit, speaking to colleges and universities, libraries, you know, that kind of thing. And people loved it. And he didn't have a script. He just answered questions. And
he could have had a show here.
He could, right? He could have. Yeah, he could have.
And he also had like a very charming accent.
He did. He was from Cockney, I guess.
Yes.
Been. Yeah.
Yes. So, you don't have an accent like that.
No, I don't. I had a stepmother, Jean Dalrymple, who was head of the New York City Center, and she actually discovered Cary Grant, gave him I mean, many people claim to have discovered him, but she gave him a speaking role, his first speaking role in a vaudeville show that she co-wrote with her collaborator, and he was. They were looking for a very handsome man, leading man.
And of course, you weren't born yet.
Right, right. So this was in the 20s, and this is before the movies, and he did a lot of theater. People don't realize that he trooped the country in doing theater and plays. But before he did that, he was in vaudeville, and before he did that, he was a stilt walker. And but she gave him a role, and her collaborator said, you know, he can't act. And she said, what difference does it make? He's a handsome guy, and he's perfect for the role. It was a small show, you know, probably 5 minutes, you know, like a lot of vaudeville in those days. It was very short plays. But we do.
It made a hit with the ladies.
He sure did. He sure did, yeah. In fact, I was watching your show before I came on, Judy, and Stuart Lane was here.
Yeah.
You interviewed him, and Stuart Lane co-owns the Palace Theater, which was the home of vaudeville for so many years.
Yes, it was. Yes. I was very impressed with that.
Yes, yeah. And that's gone with the wind now. But we have other things on Broadway, and as Stuart mentioned in the segment you did with him, Broadway's booming as far as ticket sales.
Right. So, well, let's write a play quickly so we could put it on Broadway since it's a good season, so everybody will come, okay?
Absolutely, absolutely.
We have to co-write a play.
A musical is better because they're easier to put on these days. It seems like all the tourists want to go to a musical. Now, I prefer plays myself, but
musicals, it costs a tremendous amount of money to put on.
A huge amount. I mean, it can cost you $15–20 million for a musical. I don't know what the budget for The Addams Family is with Nathan Lane and Bebe Neuwirth, which is a musical on Broadway, a musical version of the Charles Addams cartoons in The New Yorker, a famous cartoonist. But I imagine the budget was $25 million. You know, when you figure in the set and the cast of actors and also the backstage help and you name it, all the technical things they have to run a show. And that's why in England, it's so much cheaper to do a show because they're not as high union costs, which is a segue into the book I wrote about London hotels. It's a book that's coming out on November 1st. And one of the hotels, I'll show it to your audience, Judy, one of the hotels I write about is the Savoy Hotel, which is going to reopen on October 1st. And the Savoy is
That's a pretty cover.
Oh, thank you very much, yeah. I had nothing to do with it, but
I was just going to ask, did you tell the artist how to make the cover?
No, these are book artists who, one of the publishing companies that has published some of my books uses this artist time and time again, and they know what they're doing. You know, it used to be they would go to books of photographs of various things. Now with the internet, they go on the internet and look for photographs.
Yes, and so they, excuse me, they put it together, and that's the front of it, and there, can you lift it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. And the back, can we see the back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that also looks good.
Yeah.
There is a picture of you also.
Yeah, very well. I wasn't sure who that is. That's a very handsome guy there on the left, the lower
That's
left.
your bar mitzvah picture.
Right, right, right. When I
Okay.
was with the New York Post as a columnist, people
Yeah.
would say I sort of went under disguise because I used a younger picture, and people say, "Oh, who is that guy?" You know.
Yes.
And when you work for the Post, you need to wear a disguise. So they don't throw tomatoes at you.
I see.
Yeah, but
So about this book, you just finished it, or you just going
I
to?
did. It's a long process, Judy. Not only do you have to do the writing, there's a lot of editing that comes with it. Then in my case, I sent it to the different hotels. There are about 30 hotels that I cover in the book. I sent it to most of those to get their okay, or get any changes or factual errors.
So that's a good point. Yeah, it
and
is.
so.
So you had to wait till they got back to you.
Yeah, they're pretty quick on the trigger. They're wonderful to work with. They're public relations people that work for the various hotels. And if you're fair and do a good job, and if the book is PG rated, not R rated, we have a number of celebrity stories in the book about Vivian Leigh and Marilyn Monroe and Humphrey
People
Bogart.
who stayed there.
And yes, and Sienna Miller, who's a current star, and people have stayed there. But you know, the adage about writing about people in hotels is you can't write about anybody that's alive.
Oh, really?
That's what they tell journalists. They won't give you much information about people that actually stay there. Today, it's much different than it used to be, say, 20, 30, 40 years ago, because of security reasons on top of other concerns. So, they don't want people to know who's staying in the hotel. Now, if they have a public event, like a press conference, like I've been to in New York City, I went to a press conference for Frank Sinatra's 80th birthday at the Waldorf Astoria. They had the journalists in the lobby of the Waldorf, and I don't know if they actually asked him questions or he just spoke and waved and that kind of thing. His wife Barbara was with him, and it was a nice event, and that was open to the public. He lived in the Cole Porter apartment at the Waldorf, and that recently went on the market for $147,000 a month. You can rent that. It's
it's good to know.
Yeah, I want you to be the first. Yeah, I get a commission if you rent that, Judy.
Yes.
It's only 5 bedrooms, so that'd be a little small for you. Yeah.
Yes, I have a big family.
Yeah, right.
Cats and dogs, are they
Cats and-
allowed? Cats and dogs?
They are. Listen, if you pay the 147, you can bring as many cats as you want. I would imagine. I'm not sure about that, but the Waldorf is pretty pet friendly. I did a book on the Waldorf about 20 years ago,
Yes.
and there was a carpenter on the staff who built a ramp to one of the bathtubs in one of the bathrooms in the towers, the Waldorf Towers, which are the upper floors of the Waldorf Astoria. Anyway, what was that ramp for? It wasn't for the guest who could just step over the tub
Yeah.
and get in. It was for an alligator, a pet alligator
Oh,
that somebody had. So I guess if they allow a pet alligator, they must allow a dog.
So how long have you been preparing?
Well, I
For
spent
this
about
book?
3 years on the London book, probably much more time than I should have. I went over there 4 times. The last time I actually stayed at about 28 hotels on different nights. And a friend, it wasn't Around the World in 80 Days. I think Phineas Fogg, or one of the characters there, vet someone that he could go around the world in 80 days. Well, I was talking to a friend of mine in a club in New York, and I said, I bet I could stay at 30 hotels in a month. And I actually ended up doing that. And it was very interesting because some of the hotels were next door to each other. And one hotel, I was staying at the Connaught Hotel. I was going to the Millennium Mayfair. And I didn't realize that the Millennium Mayfair's front entrance was about 3 steps away from the Connaught. So I hailed a cab,
And then you were there.
and I was there. And he said, Governor, that's what they call Americans, all Americans, whether you're a governor or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Governor.
you don't have to be Governor Patterson or Governor Spitzer or Governor Hugh Carey. I remember Governor Hugh Carey, and who's still with us and still going strong, I believe. But they said, Governor, yeah, I'm not going to charge you. I can't imagine a New York City cab driver doing the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was only about a block away, realistically.
Yes.
And I didn't realize it.
Were you commissioned to do this?
I wasn't commissioned to do it. I just had a love of grand hotels. I think, as you know, and my parents, my father and mother lived at the Plaza Hotel before I was born. And then when they were kicked out of the Plaza, when they moved to the Waldorf after that. And then my stepmother and father lived at the Plaza for 11 years. And it wasn't like they were in a class with Frank Sinatra or super rich or anything. It was a custom in the old days, and I'm talking about in the 60s, to live in hotels. And about half the guests or half the rooms were people who were what they call permanents. And they lived there on a year-round basis. Marlene Dietrich lived at the Plaza, for a year or two while she was in New York. She wanted to get out of California. And there are a lot of people like that. You hear the big stories about the Plaza. The Beatles stayed there when they first came to New York, or on one of the trips to New York. But there are other celebrities who choose to live in these
big hotels.
Big hotels, yes.
So who published this?
It was published by a company called Bear Manor Media. That's bearmanormedia.com. There'll be more information about the book on a new website that I have. I don't think it's been activated, called londonsgrandhotels.com. And then I have a website which I edit. It's not really a personal website. I try to make it a mini newspaper about Broadway.
Are you doing this all by yourself?
Broadway After Dark.
On the computer?
Yes.
Or somebody helping you?
Well, I have someone helping me, a computer expert. Yeah. Who
Yes.
I send him the stories that mostly other people do. And then he puts them in the proper place on the computer for BroadwayAfterDark.com. Now, Patricia Neal just passed on, and I have a quote from Patricia Neal on the back of the book, which I don't think we're going to change because it's too late to change it. And she, at one point, she says in the quote, I've loved London in the past and all the years to come. Of course, there are no more years for her, at least in those hotels. Oddly enough, speaking of death, Spencer Tracy said that I don't want to die, but when I do, I want to go to Claridge's, which is a fine hotel in London with a grand staircase, and they have wonderful afternoon teas. And it's been around since the 1800s. That's the thing about the London hotels that I think the Far East hotels. I haven't been to the Far East. I'm told their service is magnificent, but the London hotels have a tradition of excellent service. I'm not so sure that's true about New York.
Well, I think people love to read about celebrities and what happened in the past. I know I like to do that.
Yes.
So this book should be very popular, I think. People would want to read all about what had happened in these old hotels and who stayed there. It's a very good. What gave you the idea? Well, of course, you lived in hotels and all that.
I lived in hotels, and I did a book on the Waldorf and the Plaza and other New York City hotels like the Pierre. And then I stayed in London, first at the Savoy Hotel, which is more or less like the Plaza or the Waldorf, a big hotel. And I got the idea this would be a good thing to do with stories about these hotels. So I try to make them very entertaining histories of these places, and you know, and talk about their origins, and in one case at the Savoy Hotel, it had many celebrities over the years, but Charlie Chaplin was a guest with his wife Ona. I believe it was Ona O'Neill, and Geraldine Chaplin was his daughter. I think she was a little girl at the time. Anyway, Charlie Chaplin was there, and they had checked in to a magnificent suite on the Thames River. And the manager had let them in and been very gracious about it. Then he went to leave. And he walked out what he thought was the front door. It was actually a closet. And so he was in there for about 2 minutes. And, you know, he couldn't decide what to do because he didn't want to look like an idiot. And
Inspector Clouseau.
Inspector Clouseau. And he finally came out of the closet. Yeah, not in the terms we know it these days, but he came out of the closet, and there was Charlie, older man at this time, but a big smile on his face. Wasn't laughing at him, but he was just saying to him, "We were wondering when you were coming out." Yeah. And you know, things like that. There's stories like that. Humphrey Bogart was at a party. He was on his way to do The African Queen with. He was also at the Savoy with Lauren Bacall. Well, Lauren Bacall wasn't with him in the movie. She was his wife, but he was meeting Katharine Hepburn in Darkest Africa. Anyway, so he was at a party at the Savoy, and one wag came over to him and said, "You know, Mr. Bogart, don't take your wife, Lauren Bacall," and they weren't newly married, but I think they had only been married a few years at that time, or several years, and to Africa because it's dangerous. And Bogart said, "She's going, pal." And the guy got quite persistent, and it almost ended up in a fight. Because he was on his case not to take her to Africa.
So who won?
Bogart.
Bogart.
Oh, he always won, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't have this in the book. There's a great story about him and the Stork Club. And Sherman Billingsley was the maitre d', or not the maitre d', more than a maitre d', the manager of the Stork Club. And anyway, he was very gracious to celebrities and bowed and scraped. And he also had a television show, much like yours. And Humphrey Bogart goes over to Sherman Billingsley and says, "You know, I saw your television show." And he said, "Oh, thank you very much." And he preened like a peacock. And then Bogart proceeds to say, "And you stink."
Oh my gosh.
"And you stink up the whole show." And he said, "What are you talking about?" He got apoplectic, and he said, "You're banned from this restaurant." The Stork Club was a very famous restaurant, like 21 Club is today, you know. Nice clientele. And,
so he threw him out.
He threw him out, and Bogart shot back and said, "Good, I'm not coming back anyway," you know. But Bogart liked to rile people, you know, and he took a great deal of pleasure in ribbing people. Of course, that went beyond ribbing. It was not a nice thing.
Yeah, I know people like that.
Yeah. Right. But
I do, yes.
I'm delighted, as Stuart said, to be here at the night of 100 authors. I understand it's 150 authors.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to manage. It's a small place.
Yeah. Well, they have a big tent. You know, they'll have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm located outside the tent on the right.
So you'll be selling these books? Well, you
No,
have others.
I'm not sure what book it is.
This is not out yet.
This is not out until November 1st. We'll get copies maybe in September. But I think I did a book on the Hudson Theater, and that's the most recent book I've done that's out. And the Hudson Theater book, I think that they have bought copies, 20 copies. So I've got 5 copies earmarked for you and for your friends. Yeah, and the price on the cover is $29.95. I'll give it to you for $25. I'm joking, but I'll even give you a copy. But it's very well organized, and they have real celebrity authors like Alec Baldwin and Barbara Goldsmith, or is it Goldstein? She's such a celebrity, I forgot her last name, but major players in fiction and nonfiction. And then there are people like me and others who are there just to enjoy the evening, and we'll sell a few books.
and to mingle. I think
And to
it's
mingle,
networking.
yes. Yeah. And you never
Yeah.
know, the interesting thing about a book fair, or not a library, but a bookstore, you might end up buying a book, you know. And I was up in...
Yeah, well, it's not your main income, thankfully.
Well,
I mean,
it all adds up. It all adds up, yes. And
Yes.
I've been a journalist for many years, and other things, and I do some personal management, and I guess you'd call it PR for some people. I have a pianist, his name is Alan Gampel. He's going to be in New York at Steinway Hall on the 8th or 9th of September, playing, and then he'll maybe back in December at a bigger house.
And you run a magazine called?
Broadway After Dark. It's on the
Broadway.
internet. So it's if you log into BroadwayAfterDark.com, and it's got the latest reviews of Broadway shows, a lot of the Broadway shows, some off Broadway. The Fringe Festival is going. The International Fringe Festival is going on in New York in the summer now. I think there's some reviews of that, and then we do some music reviews. We do some travel-related articles as well. I think that travel and entertainment and theater are very much tied together in some ways. They're a form of entertainment.
So Broadway After Dark,
Right.
And it's not in print. You can't buy it.
No, you can't. I did do a book called Broadway After Dark, which was a compilation of stories I did for the New York Post and the New York Sun, and stories that my father did way back for the old New York Sun and Herald Tribune and that kind of thing. And that's available, I think, still in books, some bookstores, and also Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. But this is available only on the web. You know, I think it's a healthy thing, Judy, the web, because people can access the web much more easily in remote parts of the country than they can by the New York Times. Or, I mean, here in East Hampton, you have or in Wainscott, you have no problem getting the Times or Dan's papers, a local paper. But when you're out traveling around the country, it's much more difficult. And so the computer enables you to get the information immediately.
So I know this is your second time on the show, but I don't know how many people had seen the first one. Just very quickly.
It's in the millions. I understand.
Very quickly, where were you born?
I was born in New York City.
New York City, yes.
And I'll be 38 in October.
Oh, I'll be 39 in April. So,
No, but
and,
I was talking with a friend on the way up here, and you know, I think age is relative. I think, and
it sure is.
And yeah.
And you know how relatives are.
Yes, right. But yeah, so born in New York City, and I was raised there, and then my mother and stepfather moved to Connecticut, so I was out there for high school. And but New York City is a great place to be, I think, now with all the shows.
And your father was also a journalist.
Yes, he was a critic for the old New York Sun, and for many years. And
how about the Long Island Press? Wasn't
yes, he was
yes.
on Long Island Press.
Yeah, that's how I know.
Yeah, and did stories from different parts of the world. And he would take off and go to South Africa and around the world.
Did he always take you with him?
I went a lot of places. I went to Atlantic, but I think I went to Atlantic City. I went to Canada, but not South Africa. Or I went to South America on my own. He was with a group of journalists in the early 1930s when they were taking the first commercial flights. Juan Tripp, who was head of Pan American Airlines at the time, was sponsoring a lot of trips for journalists to go to South America. He was almost killed in one trip. I mean, in one, I don't mean to be a pun on trip,
Yeah.
but on one excursion down in Brazil and near the Andes and that kind of thing. And I did live with a group of Indians in the Amazon. And it's longer every time I tell it. No, but no, it was about 5 days. I stayed, and I did a story for the Christian Science Monitor. I was on the staff of the Christian Science Monitor for several years. And I went with another journalist from the Monitor, and we were there for about 5 days and ate what the natives ate, and a very remote village. We had to take smaller and smaller planes.
Were you scared living there?
I don't think scared. I think it was just rough, and I think it was a good way to go on a forced diet, because there was no Western food there. The Western food was manioc. I mean, it wasn't. That's not Western, but it's a potato-like substance that's cooked to get the poison out of it, and it tastes like crackers. If you have saltines, that's what it really tastes like, without the salt. And but
they grow that?
They grow that. It's like a banana plant.
It grows on trees?
Grows on trees, and then they cook it. Pick it and then cook it in these big pots.
Oh, and just like we see in the movies, a big pot, and there's one ladle, and they pass it around in a circle.
Right. Something like that, yeah. And maybe, but you can't drink the juice because the juice is poisonous. Once you boil it and get the juice out of it, then it's...
Well, you know what? Next time you come, I want a recipe. You have to explain it.
Okay.
But for the time being...
But there are great places like that to still visit. And I think many tourists, and I'm guilty of it too, I don't know if have you been to exotic places like the Antarctic or anything like that? Or
no, the most exotic place I went to is Aruba.
Well, depends on the time of year, right?
Yeah.
Right.
With the divvy trees.
Right.
Yes.
Well, there's a lot of there are wonderful places to see in this world. Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming and enlightening us with your wonderful stories and this new book, London's
Grand Hotels.
Grand Hotels. It's going to be coming out in October, November.
Yeah, it may be available in bookstores in October.
Yes.
The publishing date is November 1st.
Well, great, Ward.
Thank you very much.
Another wonderful half hour, and you must come back and tell us more about the success of this story and a lot of other stories which we didn't have time to talk about.
Great, and I'll see you at the Author's Night tomorrow night.
Yes, tomorrow night, yes.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Thank you very much, Judy. I look forward to this show because I think you're one of the better interviewers because you actually listen. And
that's what I hear, but
yes.
why would I not listen?
Well, because they're so busy talking.
Oh.
You know, and you're, I appreciate the opportunity to talk. I hope I didn't talk too much, but I
No, you were very informative.
But it's,
yes.
you really have that knack of bringing out stories in people, which I think a lot of talk show hosts, and I've been on a number of shows, they talk a blue streak. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's one of the better features I have about myself, because that's what people say. Even when they watch my show, they say...
I don't know how you learn that. You just come naturally, or...
Yes, yeah. Just like when I write stories or plays, it's like I was talking a bit Stewart, it's like somebody's guiding me, because then I read my writing.